There are few shows like Aggretsuko that I can think of off the top of my head. Sure, there are shows which commonly share Aggretsuko's strong and relatable characters, like the Josei classic Princess Jellyfish, or that deals with themes of adult relationships and friendships in a down-to-earth way, such as I Can't Understand What My Husband Is Saying or The Tatami Galaxy. Shows that have clever, funny, witty, and heartbreaking writing, such as Mob Psycho 100 and One Punch Man. Sure, anime and manga and creative media as a whole can share similar connections and its universal themes, as there's so many ways to execute on common ideas in a fun and creative way. However, there will always only be one of them, one creator and their creation. Aggretsuko is a show about topics that anyone can experience. A show that when it dropped for streaming on the worldwide interwebs next to our content machine overlord Netflix, this red panda caused immediate buzz and conversation about the relatability of the dark abyss of adulting and shitty bosses in a foreign country that I can only research and not experience myself, and it's my anime of the year 2018. So even though the discussion on this anime is common and possibly overdone, you poor imbecile must now listen to me drone on about why I loved this show so much last year and what made it my favorite, starting with me committing a creator's worst nightmare, comparing this anime to something else. Because Aggretsuko greatly reminds me of another one of my favorite TV shows that also just so happens to be a Netflix original, BoJack Horseman, because whatever chance I can get to discuss BoJack, I am leaping for in a heartbeat. In short summary, BoJack Horseman is a guy who has everything. He has money, fame, a nice house with a kick-ass view of a city that at one point of his life he felt like he owned. But that's it. This guy who had the world in the palm of his hand is a drunk, washed up, has-been celebrity who was once in a very famous TV show back in the 90s. BoJack now spends his day meandering through scheme after scheme and hollow attempts to get back into the spotlight, whether it's by having a ghostwriter write his tell-all memoir One Trick Pony, finishing his script for a rom-com titled Love is an Illusion and Happiness is Fleeting and There's No Such Thing as a God and the Beatles Beat Their Wives, or re-entering the world of acting. BoJack is a guy who has everything but can't seem to figure shit out. And that's not something you expected from a show that started off with early Family Guy-esque humor. You didn't expect for this show with a few funny jokes to plunge you into a world of despair, a world that discusses various topics of abuse, relationships, health, and more in a mature way that doesn't hold back on that excruciating gut punch. And you definitely didn't expect to be forced to look into a mirror by characters that are just like you. In short, you didn't expect for this show about a talking alcoholic horse to call you and society out on so much of our bullshit. In the book BoJack Horseman, The Art Before the Horse, which all of you should read if you love the show like I do, it's really fucking good. Show creator Raphael Bob Waxberg writes in his introduction, "When I look at BoJack, I see a lot of hope. I see a world full of characters who suffer tremendously, but still always finds a way to pick up their cart and keep moving forward." I bring up Raphael's quote because I found it to be incredibly impactful. It made me rethink this show that for 5 seasons has perfectly balanced humor with dark subjects that we don't usually want to think about. This quote gave me so much more respect for BoJack Horseman, my favorite TV show of all time, and also made me apply it to my own creative work, such as writing this very video and other media that I love. Which brings me back to Aggretsuko, an original anime currently streaming on Netflix with a total of 10 15-minute long episodes, a Christmas special, and a second season airing sometime this year. While being an anime original due to not being based on any manga, game, or others, Aggretsuko is ultimately an advertisement for a marketing company that has had a firm grasp on my soul ever since I was a kid in the animation section of Blockbuster. Sanrio is a worldwide household name at this point. It stands beside the likes of Disney and Mattel's Barbie as that company you dropped an assload of money on your kid for until they became adults that you told to fuck off and buy their own shit. Sanrio are Japan's marketing masters, with an army of artists and creators inventing and designing the next money-making merch for your favorite cuddly kitty who isn't a cat but a human girl dressed as a cat, or a lazy egg, which is a reflection of Japan's depressed generation of youth. Created by Yeti for the Sanrio company, Aggretsuko is a 25-year-old female red panda who works in accounting in your average everyday office building, created to reflect the woes most of Japanese females in her position, Retsuko's catch is that this cute little red panda vents her frustrations through the not-so-feminine act of death metal, venting about her boss, shit co-workers, and desire for a better life where she won't have to put up with this shit anymore. Making her debut in 2015, Retsuko was subject to a 100-episode TV anime that ran from 2016 and ended a month before the Netflix series dropped in 2018. Episodes lasted for a mere 1 minute and was never picked up for streaming in the West. Chances are you never heard of Retsuko until the Netflix series dropped, because I sure as hell didn't. And after watching the Netflix series over and over and over again, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the original series isn't worth watching because it probably isn't as fleshed out as the Netflix one. Although she was created and animated to be an ad for Sanrio merch, Retsuko thankfully isn't reduced to or defined by that. She isn't the first Sanrio character to receive a full-length anime. Back in 2015, Studio Bones was tasked with animating Show by Rock, where cute girls in a band tried to succeed in a world ran by the power of music. In 2018, there was Sanrio Boys, a show about cute boys who love their Sanrio merch and isn't ashamed of it. This show is fucking genius in terms of marketing, but I dropped it in one episode because lol, I'm gay and didn't feel like watching so blatant of an ad. However, outside of the dozens of Hello Kitty cartoons, one of which starred Tara fucking Strong, Aggretsuko has to be Sanrio's most successful endeavor into anime. And it isn't hard to see why. I'm fairly positive that most people didn't binge Aggretsuko because it's a Sanrio anime and a blatant ad for merch. If you were like me, you probably came for the quirky premise of a red panda screaming death metal at the top of her lungs, but instead you were surprised and maybe even blown away at what you received. When Retsuko entered the workforce and therefore adulthood, she was thrilled. A whole new world had just opened up to her and she couldn't wait for what was to come next. Little did she know that the bright-eyed young woman that she once was is now 25 and miserable. Trapped in the position that she started in, Retsuko hates her job, her life, and of course her boss, who is a literal sexist pig. Every day is the same. Wake up, long for the desire to not go to work, put up with whatever bullshit for the day, leave and vent her frustrations through death metal. Rinse and repeat. It's a vicious cycle that she's unsure of how to break out from, as opportunities seems to have forgotten her and sparks of hope and inspiration are small and fleeting. Just from that premise alone, I'm pretty positive that this wasn't the comedy anime you were expecting. And then of course there are the characters, the heart and soul of the series that seems to be the reason why everyone is so attached to Aggretsuko. Chances are you either are or know one of these characters in real life. Maybe you're a Sonoda, someone who exploits the system to do as little work as possible, or internet detective Finiko, who keeps close tabs on people through social media, speaks negatively about them behind their backs, and acts friendly to them in their face. I personally have known many Haidas, so much so that Haida is my new nickname for a person who is so anxious to ruin what they have that they can't get their feelings out. I may or may not know a Gori, who is very excitable but mourns over their failed relationships. Maybe I know a Washimi, who's very good at reading and controlling the room. I do, however, know a Komiya, a suck-up who tries to do as little as possible, and I hope to God you don't know a Ton or a Subone. On the surface, those are very bad descriptions to give a person. However, that's what they're like when we're introduced to them in the show. When meeting most of these characters for the first time, there's an aura of unkindness, and that's probably a reflection of Retsuko's current mood to her workplace. However, I believe that the perceived unfriendliness of these characters is what the anime does best. Aggretsuko's characters excel at perspective. Even Retsuko herself is introduced at a measly high before quickly crashing down into a low. I think that it was both a risky and ingenious thing to introduce characters wearing their negative traits on their sleeves, something that would have quickly put this anime in the red of the drop zone if the comedy and writing wasn't so damn good. It reminds us that nobody is perfect while teaching us that bad people isn't exactly a bad person. In fact, I don't believe anyone in this anime is a bad person. Heavy emphasis on the quotes. Sure, originally Sonoda is the most punchable bitch in the room, but that's not true. She's someone who knows she's a kiss ass and does that in order to survive over the hostile rule of an abusive boss. Sure, Finiko is someone who you don't want to piss off, but Best Girl quickly proves herself to be a good friend who looks out for others despite all her cynicism. Haida may have been perceived as love interest number I've lost count at this fucking point, who you were ready to roll your eyes at because he was with said love interest, but his anxiety, friendliness, supportiveness, and grief is what makes him such a fleshed out and well-rounded character that we all want to buy a beer for and let him cry on our shoulders. Gori and Washimi may have seemed terrifying at first with their baddest bitch in the room walk, but we quickly learned that's all an act for the workplace, and they really are good friends who are more than willing to help. Even Subone is someone who earned her place and is just a single aging aunt who loves her nephew. If anything, I think the worst character in this anime is Space Cadet because he's a guy who's so out of it that he can't say no. He blindly agrees to date Retsuko and is so out of touch with people that he doesn't realize that he's hurting her, but that doesn't make him a bad guy. He just has a major fault that will probably never be fixed because he doesn't care to fix it. He's someone who enjoys living and being alone because he has plenty of company with his plants. But Sasuke is one of those people who are more in touch with other living or non-living objects that human beings just aren't really his jam. And that's okay because he has a healthy relationship with said objects. It still isn't good that he was so passive that he ran Retsuko ragged, but can you really blame the guy once you find out who he truly is? He wasn't the dazed asshole that you thought he was, he's just a plant dad. I'm sure that by now many people are thinking, well, what about Ton? He's the biggest asshole in the show. He's a literal sexist pig. Well, Ton was what actually cemented my love for this show and helped it become my anime of the year. Sure, like everyone else, I really hated Ton, but he never fully angered me because so many of the jokes with him consisted on knocking him down and calling him out on his bullshit. See, Dragon Pilot? This is how you fucking do sexist fucking comedy. But you'll get your fucking day, trust me. Ton is the embodiment of every horror story from every workplace. He's an abusive boss who talks down and demeans his employees, forces extra work on them and unwanted overtime, slacks off counting the days until his next vacation, and blames employees for all of their mistakes instead of helping them. He's what makes the workplace so toxic and hostile, and no one will do anything about it because he's the damn boss. And then episode 10 happens when Ton lets himself be vulnerable for Retsuko's sake. You realize that Ton isn't the way he is because that's the kind of person he is. Instead, he's the product of a just as abusive work environment, that he had to go through the same shit from his boss, and now that he's in the same position, he's confused at how the changing times shames his methods that were once acceptable. Because of his confusion, you don't understand if he's working this way out of anger or if he believes it's right because that's what happened to him. But whatever it is, Ton isn't exactly redeemed, but you sympathize with him. So if the characters are my second most beloved aspect of Aggretsuko, then what is my primary reason for loving this anime? Well, it's simply Retsuko herself. Retsuko was a character that I connected to the most with, and what kept me coming back to the anime some 5 odd times last year. She was a great source of comfort to me because she reminded me that I wasn't alone and there were others out there dealing with the same issues that I am. Retsuko is far from the perfect human being. On the surface, she seems to have her life together, apartment, job, friends, single and ready to mingle. Things that I want in my current life except for the single part. However, Retsuko hates her job, hates the current stability of her life, and pretty soon she comes to realize that she can't be single forever. During the 3 acts of the series, a new life-changing solution presents itself, and Retsuko latches onto it so much that she becomes obsessed with it. In the Christmas special, it's Instagram, and Act 1 is Puko's import store, Act 2 marriage, Act 3 a boyfriend. However, all of Retsuko's hopes and dreams comes crumbling down at her feet as soon as she obtains them. Puko's store is going to be an online startup and the income isn't livable, so Retsuko is forced to back out from a project that probably would have failed anyway. Marriage seems reasonable, so Retsuko takes yoga. This option is nulled as it won't happen for years and may not be what she thinks. However, she did get to know Gori and Washimi. Retsuko also had a hand in her failed relationship with Sasuke. Being the head over heels type and determined to be a good girlfriend, she didn't realize how miserable she was until Gori, Washimi, and even Ton, being the fucking G's that they are, snapped her out of it. And Instagram is another story that had its own pretty heartwarming conclusion. Retsuko throughout season 1 was a character who learned that not everything works out and she has to work on not keeping her head in the clouds so much. Sure, I also looked at Puko, the only character in the show who presented herself as exactly who she is, with big longing eyes, thinking to myself, damn, That's the woman I want to be, but didn't know how nor have the balls to become such a woman. Resco and I are both people who know what we want, but don't quite know how to reach our goals. We both tried our hands at different solutions only for it to turn into sand slipping through our fingers. For me, it's being self-employed. In this world of endless startups and on social media, it looks like everyone you follow are making a good living being their own boss. There's only so many weeks I can take of working under someone else before saying, fuck this, I want out and to go back to doing what I love. It sometimes feels like my brain has rewired itself throughout the 19 years of my life into someone who will be miserable with a 9-to-5 and stable income. 25-year-old Resco is, simply put, a fed up, pissed off woman who is ready to break free from her current chains of unhappiness in order to find joy once again. Whereas Resco tried a new job, a new boyfriend, and Instagram, I tried freelance writing, which was a hellish experience of demeaning my skills, lies, and no pay, photography, which is now purely a hobby, and trying to make this YouTube channel into something bigger and better until this fucking bullshit site kept fucking over its creators and my channel suffered due to the constant strain of poor mental health that it and myself were placing on me. However, unlike Resco, I never got my hopes up on any of these things. I've been disappointed time and time and time again in my life that I've adopted the policy of high hopes, low expectations in order to prevent more disappointment. I've gone from complaining and wishing to not give a fuck to setting it as my goal, and I think I finally reached it. I no longer give a fuck about my past failures and the mound of salt and sand that has peacefully gathered underneath my hands. I'm more focused on finding that one hook that will help me become self-employed and earn me lots of money in order to create a peaceful life for my partner and my pets. I've turned my back on the hell that was freelance writing and creating a job out of this shitty fucking site, and have in turn learned that I still want to make bullshit videos to help the indies that I'm so passionate about and grow my writing skills to become an even better writer. I fully accepted the fact that I have to work the miserable, stable jobs that I hate so much in order to earn my future happiness. I fully expect that life is full of shit, and it's fucking bullshit how life constantly wants to kick you in the dick and tell you that you're worthless, but it's also not, because that's just life. That's the greatest lesson that Resco and I have learned. Shit happens, but life goes on. You may or may not get there one day, but for now, you have to work for it. When shit gets hard, you have outlets to maintain sanity, whether it's kick-ass friends, healthy relationships, or escapism into our own little world. The world doesn't stop turning for a reason. A new day will come, and it may or may not be better or worse than the last. That's what I saw when I gazed upon Resco and her friends and her life time and time and time again back in 2018. When I look at Resco, I don't see a marketing tool or a gimmick. I don't see a cute little red panda with the foreshadowing facial design who reminds me of one of those Sanrio characters. To me, calling her those would be demeaning her. No. To me, when I look at Resco, I see hope.